Welcome to the Hit Like a Girl podcast. This is HITea with Grace, where we spill the tea on HIT. Today, I'm honored to welcome Halle Tecco, healthcare optimist, entrepreneur, angel investor, LP, professor, and podcast host of Heart of Healthcare. Halle, thanks for joining us today. We're so looking forward to learning from you.
Oh, thanks for having me. Just like hearing my bio makes me tired.
All of us women know what that's like, right? When we are ambitious and we push forward, it does seem like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So to start this conversation off right, what inspired you to enter healthcare entrepreneurship, investment, and do the work that you do? I would love to hear, about your career journey and how you've kind of seen healthcare evolve throughout it.
Yeah. So I formally entered healthcare when I went back to business school, and I wanted a career switch. I was working in tech, and I really wanted to apply what I was learning around business models and software to a space where I could make the biggest impact possible. And I had, at the time, I was so young, I was so socially driven and explored a lot of industries, but kept coming back to healthcare as it was time and time again proven to be the biggest opportunity to make a difference in the lives of Americans. And also just a really complex system that intrigued me. And so intellectually was really interested. And so I went to business school with that in mind, with that as my business school admissions essay. I want to combine my interests in healthcare and technology and figure out how we can improve the healthcare system through entrepreneurship and innovation. And that was, I went to business school in 2009. So that was quite some years ago now. And how has it changed? So tremendously. It has changed tremendously. I think mostly for the better. I talk a lot about how in the early days, we were just really gaslit, and the old guard in healthcare, for the most part, I don't want to say all of them, because there were folks who were super supportive and kind and helpful, and I am forever grateful for them. But most of the old guard healthcare folks were very resistant to newcomers coming in, getting attention, trying to do things in a new way, and were pretty nasty to me and others that were kind of in this wave of new innovators at around 2010 to 2012. And, I think now I have some sympathy for them. I think they were really tired. I think the first health IT wave was pretty miserable. And, I'm tired now. And there's been a lot of miserable things. So I get it. In a lot of ways, I get how they felt. But I also, vowed that when I would become the old guard, that I would do it differently. And so I have really tried to stick to that. And I sometimes find myself being skeptical and pessimistic, and I have to kind of correct myself because we need as many smart people as we can get in healthcare. There's no benefit in scaring people away. I think we can be helpful and encouraging. And so that's really what I'm dedicated to now. And it feels like there are a lot of, now the old guard is really awesome and really, for the most part, does want to help and shares key learnings, whether that's a postmortem because they failed or how they got to where they are, in success. And so I would say that's kind of the difference I've seen, is that we've recognized that healthcare can't exist in a silo. We need to fill the table with diverse minds from different backgrounds. And as Albert Einstein said, we can't solve, the problems. We can't solve the problems of the same thinking that created them. And I think that for the most part, people are more open to that now. And that's how I think it's been the biggest difference in my experience.
That's so inspiring. And the fact that you've been able to keep your optimism in the midst of all of this too is such a challenge. I came up in healthcare at the same time and had a very similar experience, despite being in a different sector of healthcare and different side of the box of what's happening. And so I can totally say to you, it's very easy to look at it and say, oh, things are hopeless. Nothing's going to ever change. But I'm just so grateful to have people like you in the industry really leading the charge, really leading the way and keeping that optimism in the midst of all of the pessimism in the
Thank you. And likewise, I mean, it's easy to get it's easy to be a naysayer and get a lot of attention by being a naysayer. And it's easy to get frustrated. I'm frustrated all the freaking time in healthcare. And I find myself having to kind of self-regulate and realize that change happens in healthcare a lot more slowly, but it's happening. And you see glimmers of progress that kind of keep you going.
Yeah. And you figure out the powerful pivot, right? You figure out how to maybe get creative and change things so that maybe it works out next time. Very fascinating. So now, given your background, I have to ask, for women looking to start their own healthcare ventures and things in the space, from your experiences that you kind of bring to the table, what key challenges should women anticipate, women leaders in healthcare technology and in femtech, and how can they navigate these obstacles effectively?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, fundraising is the thing I hear the most about from fellow female innovators. And the fact is, women receive under 2% of venture funding. It's a data point that has been steady and in some years worsening. And we have to work harder and prove ourselves in our businesses in a way that male colleagues don't have to. And, venture funding is an old boys club, and it's not changing. That's not changing fast enough. So I would say that's the biggest challenge that I think women can anticipate. How to overcome that challenge is,
probably a whole book topic, right? Workshop, but
I mean, it's not fair. It's really not fair. And there is ample research that shows that women are evaluated based on their track record and what they've accomplished, whereas men are evaluated based on their potential. It's why Harvard dropout Mark Zuckerberg could easily get funding, but women who are, with a college degree and some, work experience, like where I was when I started Rock Health, why it was more challenging. And, and this is generalization. This is research-backed facts. There are certainly investors who are trying really hard to make sure that their portfolios are diverse and that they're giving women founders a chance. And I, would love to see more of them. But there are women healthcare investors like Lynn Chu of Define Ventures and Annie Lamont of Oak, which they've actually started their own funds dedicated to the space, which is pretty cool. So I don't know. I don't know what the advice I have. Be aware that these biases exist, and there are people trying to change them. But if you're going to succeed, you're going to have to succeed despite these biases that exist. And if especially if you're a woman of color, then you have even more challenges that you may face in pitching your business and networking and closing funding. And I don't know if I have the right advice. I would say kind of for any founder, regardless of your gender, really focusing on building a business that solves a real problem in healthcare and get customers as soon as you can. Prove that people will pay for this. Getting to product market fit is the most beneficial thing that you can do. I would, be cautious of giving away too much of your company and being okay with saying no to investments if it means that you can maintain control and ownership. But it's hard. I mean, it's absolutely a privilege to start a company. You have to be able to support yourself while you are getting up and running. And so some women are able to do this and moonlight with their day job. It's very challenging. Others have to save enough to leave their companies and do this. And, recognizing that it's a great privilege and a huge risk.
You sit on this very interesting line of having been an entrepreneur seeking funding and then also being an investor that funds. And so you kind of have this very unique perspective that you can bring to the table from both sides of things. How do you feel that kind of helps you in the work that you're doing and the mentorship that you give to others that are looking to get into the space?
Yeah. Certainly, being an operator, having that experience, I've now co-founded 2 women's health companies, one that exited and one that's about a year old, both raised over $5 million. So, Series seed, Series A stage. There's nothing like being an operator. You are forced to learn very quickly, and it is the hardest job being a founder. Being an investor is way easier. And it's easier to give advice and, be a cheerleader on the sidelines than be the founder that's actually building things. You are literally a firefighter as a founder. Every day there's something else to solve, another problem that pops up, and hopefully, the highs are higher than the lows. I mean, it's there's really quite nothing like it, and I really wouldn't recommend it if you haven't thought through how challenging it is. But yeah, I think my experience, I like being an investor better in terms of the flexibility it gives me. It's much easier. It's much less stressful, but, being a good investor is really hard, and being an angel investor, you get really diluted over time. You have follow-on investors that, create new structures that totally screw you over. And I've had it happen over and over again where it's, it can be really disappointing. So, being an angel investor is tough. Being a VC is even different, right? Because as an angel investor, you have many investments. I've had 51, angel investments over the last decade or so. As a VC, though, it's fewer deals, but you're following on with them. So you're hopefully investing in and continuing to keep kind of your ownership. And it might include a board seat, more involvement. And so that's a different beast altogether, but a little bit different from being an angel investor.
What were some steps you took to start investing, being an angel investor? You from what you were doing before, like what were the practical steps that you took just practically to get things rolling?
Yeah. I read Venture Deals many moons ago. That I feel like that book at the time was kind of helped. It's like the Bible for investing. I'm not sure if there's something better today, but that was the book that really helped me study like the mechanics of deal making. I would say though, the most important thing was that I was in the right place at the right time. And it was easy to find great companies to invest in because I was living in San Francisco, and the folks that I was hanging out with and working with and partying with were people that were working on really interesting companies. And so just the deal flow, the networking, all was really easy. And now, people ask like, well, how do you find deals? And if you embed yourself in a community of innovation, the deals are just there. Yeah. And you'll just have those opportunities. So I started with very small checks, $2,500. And the first, couple of companies had good returns for me. And so I kept going. And I say this like, you have to recognize how illiquid angel investing is. It takes many, many years for a company to exit. And the time right now is even longer because basically M&A and the IPO markets are like frozen, essentially. But then I had the opportunity to, and this is something that's like not really spoken about, but I had the opportunity to be a VC scout. So I had a VC that gave me money, and I was able to invest in, I kept the first VC, it was 30% carry. Then they moved down to 20% carry. So I started investing other people's money, which is even better than investing your own money, because I was able to write
awesome. That is
checks.
So interesting.
Yes.
So how long did you do scouting then, VC scout?
Yeah. For probably 4 years. And I have a couple blog posts on my website, halletecco.com, where I like do a deep dive. I have one that's like all about what the VC Scout program is, how does it work, which VCs do it, how to kind of get the gig. And I think that could be really helpful. And then I did a 3-part series on angel investing. This year, I really slowed down. I think I've invested in 2 companies this year. In past years, it would be 10, 15 companies a year. But this year, I really have taken a pause to reflect and write more. And so earlier this year, I put together a kind of series where I'm completely transparent, and I share like, this is what I've done. Here are my outcomes. Looking
You're
at
so generous to be willing to share that knowledge with people. And I think it really stems back to when you enter an industry and mentors are few and far in between, you realize how critical it is for the industry to have mentors like you willing to share your experiences with people. What has the feedback been like on these series that you've been doing?
I mean, why gatekeep? I don't know. I'm against gatekeeping. I don't think that there's like, there's
especially in an industry where the end game is improved outcomes, and like patient lives on the line. I feel like gatekeeping is immoral in many ways when you're thinking of the end game of all of healthcare being improving things for the all of healthcare.
Yeah. And I didn't have these guides when I was starting, and I really I thoroughly enjoy putting them together. And so this year, I think I hit like 40 blog posts. This is my first year blogging. But what I'm basically doing is like the questions that I get or the things that people are most curious about, I just write about them now and share them publicly. And then it saves me time. Like, look, I can't mentor everyone who comes to me and asks for my time. I can't do office hours. I could fill my time plus some just doing these like free meetings, and then I would have no salary. And, it's just like, it's not sustainable. I need to focus on my work. I really do. But I also feel an obligation to, as I said, I want to see this next wave of innovators feel really supported and empowered to do things the right way. And so that was the motivation for me to kind of start putting all this content out there. And I do eventually want to write a book so that I have something that, I can point people towards that's like in one nice package. But so the angel investing series was like really what kicked it off. And then kind of went from there. And I have all sorts of topics from like how to stay off the FTC's naughty list to, one, I recently worked on one with one of my portfolio companies that works in the privacy space around like every healthcare founder should read this before they run ads. Like just understand how retargeting can, put you in the hot seat for the FTC. And so, I think that the feedback I've gotten is really great. And I'm starting to really build out a nice library of content for folks. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. I don't think it can stay on my personal blog forever. That's why I'm thinking maybe, kind of package it up in a book or some other brand or something. But the goal really is to just help folks that are getting started or just need a resource to answer a question. I have another one that was really popular that was like, here are all the investors to talk to. Just because people will be like, who should I pitch? Oh,
true. Who should I bring this virtual care solution to?
Who should I pitch? So here's a list. Here's a list of the people. Here's the investments they've done. Here's their names. I don't do the emails. You can find their emails. But stuff like that. That's just like, why gatekeep? why has no one put together a list of digital health investors? I don't know.
When did it hit you that you needed to be this person to share this information? Because there's only few people that sit in the line that you sit and have the experiences and connections that you have. So when did it kind of hit you like, oh, I need to be doing this. This needs to happen. And who's going to do this? And I need to be the one that does it.
So actually what happened was I was recognizing that I was just like so overwhelmed with inbound emails and DMs, and I felt terrible because I was like, I want to help. I want to be able to respond to everyone. I want to help everyone, but I could actually start to like bucket the requests into different, like they're very common threads amongst many of them. And so in doing that, I realized, oh my gosh, so one of my most popular responses used to be like, hey, I can't get on a call. I can't let you pick my brain. I don't have capacity, but just like, tell me what you want and I'll reply. And so I started to just track the sort of requests I was getting. And so through that was like, okay, people are asking me the same thing. Like they're coming to me for the same sort of questions. How do I find a job in digital health? I'm not a recruiter, but I put together a blog post. So you want to work in digital health? Or who should I pitch? All these, how do I get my first customer? Who should I be talking to? Those sort of things. And that's really when I did that assessment of okay, what sort of requests am I getting that I can start streamlining? That was okay, I'll just turn this into a blog and hopefully help all those folks. And then now it's just my away message. So if you email me, I just have this away message that it's been up for a while. I need to edit it, but it's I don't work for free. Stop asking me to work for free. I don't do public speaking anymore. It's kind of just the common request people ask to be in my class. Reach out to the school. I don't manage, who can be in my class or not. You have to register through the school. So just pointing people into the direction of the most common questions I get.
All of us women leaders are used to that email. Can I pick your brain for a second? And I think it's a really fascinating strategy that you've deployed here that we all need to maybe consider. Maybe we need to get creative with how we respond instead of just saying no or pay for it or whatever, which is all good responses. Maybe saying, hey, let me help inform people so that I'm not getting these massive amounts of requests that are just impossible.
And I hate it because I realize there are people who picked up the phone and talked to me when I was early in my career, and I'm so grateful to them. And so I want to be that person for others. It's just, you have to know your capacity and, seasons in your life change, and you have time in seasons when you have that capacity, or say you have a job where actually networking with people in your space, maybe you're hiring. And so having those calls is really important to your job. And then you have other times when you're this is purely a distraction. This is charity. I can't do any more charity. I need to be able to feed my family and not be stressed. And so I think another tactic that I've seen people do, and something I'm thinking about doing, is there's apps where you can do office hours that they manage it. So people can, book it there. And I saw one founder that said I just do these office hours really early in the morning, because then you only get people who really want to talk to you. And I was that's kind of cruel, but
I've seen that. And I've also seen people putting in a PayPal link to if you're going to set up time with me, this is how much the consulting hour is.
Oh, I think
in order to schedule a thing, PayPal, everything. And
oh my gosh,
that people still will do it. So it's
I think that's
why not,
absolutely reasonable. We cannot expect people to work for free. If it is a one-way conversation, I mean, if someone says, I don't need to network, this is not something that I'm prioritizing in my life right now. So connecting with the other person is purely to help them. I don't think that's wrong. People women need to get paid. Stop asking people to speak for free at events that people are paying a ton of money to go to if it doesn't benefit them. I realize there are cases where you want to get in front of customers. Sure, I will speak for free if it's going to help me sell my product and my business succeed. Then there are other cases where, I don't have anything to sell. There's literally no benefit to me to go to. I have said no to every single conference over the last 3 years because I'm just like, I don't need to network. I don't want to network. I don't want to travel. I don't want to get on a plane. Like no one masks. No one cares about COVID anymore. Like, and I do. And so, I've gotten really good at saying no. I just no. And maybe if you would pay me, I would consider it. But if not unpaid, absolutely not. I had this one tweet that kind of went viral because I told the story about how, look, I'm an adjunct professor. I've been teaching since 2015. It is a paid position. This is not a volunteer position at the school. This is a paid position. I run a classroom. I take it very seriously. But I had another university ask me to come speak to their exec ed students that were paying like $17,000 to be there. And they didn't even offer to cover my travel. I was just like, you want me to pay to come talk to people that are like, paying this exorbitant amount? It just, everybody deserves that their time is valued and respected. And I have no problem in paying someone if I need something from them and I don't have anything else to offer them and they don't need to talk to me, but they're going to take time out of their day that they could be making money. Like, I'm happy to pay them.
Couldn't agree more. And I think all the women listening right now are like, amen, sister, hallelujah, preach it from the top. So thank you for saying it. It's true. Women, don't work for free. Yeah. And if you need, it really makes sense for you.
And if you're on the other side of it and you're like, man, I really need to talk to this person because they could really help me. But like, I don't have a ton of money to like pay them because these are people that are like, my hourly rate is not cheap. Right. I think consider making it really easy for them. Do you really need to get on a call with them? Can it just be async? Like, what is it that you really want? Like, is it that you really want suggestions on companies that they should potentially work at? Then just like email them and ask them. And I guarantee that someone is more likely to help if you make it really easy for them to help on their own time, asynchronously via email or text or whatever it is, than like getting on another. We all have Zoom fatigue. Like I'm so sick of sitting in front of my computer and like being on call after call after call after call. Like I don't want to do it. So, that's a piece of advice. And I think a lot of folks that you reach out to would be happy to help if you just are like very direct about it. But like the worst is like, I just want to pick your brain. No, what exactly do you want?
Exactly. Be specific, right? Be specific. Yeah. And also don't forget that there's crowdsourcing for digital health and healthcare IT on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And it's a totally underutilized resource. People find hospitals and health systems to pilot, payers that are willing to pilot their technologies just via social media. So if you want to ask the social world and maybe tag a few folks that are that may be willing to amplify it for you. Most people are willing to retweet. Most people are totally fine with doing that. They want to see you succeed, especially if you're doing something worthwhile. Yeah. So, get creative with finding that information. If somebody says no, find it another way. It makes a lot of sense. So you were talking a lot about capacity, and I kind of want to lean into now your personal journey, like as a human on this world. You're a successful career woman. What are tips and tricks you do just in your day-to-day to work your best and make a difference? Like, how do you stay on top of your personal life game while you're also just really succeeding in your professional life?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Probably not enough, but I'm like, what I'm doing now is very different from the beginning of my career. And I recognize that I have a lot of privileges now that did not exist for me when I was starting out. When I was starting out, I was such a workaholic and I prioritized work above all else. And, would I be here if I hadn't done that? Who knows? Like I probably could have been more efficient and more balanced and still have succeeded. But there's certainly something to be said about the hustle that I showed early on in my career. That now my biggest priority now is flexibility. That's all I want. That is the most valuable thing to me. Like you could offer me a job that is like really exciting and really high pay, but if I had to like go to an office every day and like, only have 2 weeks of vacation, I would say no. I like, to me, where I am right now, it's all about flexibility. And so I make all of my decisions based on that goal of flexibility. So for instance, I helped start this company, Co-Fertility, and I could have been the CEO, but instead I, knew someone who was thinking about starting a company, and we banded together, and I was like, you're the CEO. I'm older. I have more experience, but she's an incredible leader. She has a ton of experience. And I'm like, where I am in my life, like, I'm going to be a really awesome board member and co-founder. Like, that is where I am. You're going to be an awesome CEO. This is where you are, I knew where she was in her career and her life. And so every decision I make is really around that. Like, do I have control, autonomy, and flexibility? And so like this year, my husband, my son, and I spent 9 weeks probably of the whole year abroad, just working abroad and being able to do that and being in a totally different time zone. We were in Asia for half of that, Europe for half of that. And so being able to do that is incredible. And it's, for me, like COVID we were very, I did nothing during COVID. We were very conservative for a long time. So now I'm kind of like the pendulum has swung, and I'm like, I want to see the world again. But yeah, I think
experience it as a family. It's really inspiring.
Yeah.
A lot of flexibility. Could you imagine years ago when you were first starting your career, even considering being flexible with your time and also being able to build your career the way that you're building it? It's pretty amazing in this day and age that you can do that. Have there been any personal challenges in your life that have inspired the work that you do today? In healthcare, it's often the case where something you go through just says, hey, I need to fix this issue.
Yeah.
What's that for you?
Yeah. Infertility has been like probably the biggest medical thing I have faced, and dealing with many years. I think we did IVF for 9 years. And fortunately have one miracle child because of it, but going through that. And it's interesting because infertility is one of those that is like as emotional as it is physical. And so that certainly opened my eyes to the opportunity within women's health and specifically infertility, and that whole space, the bar is just really low. There's anything that is $20,000 where you may or may not have the outcome you want. I can't think of another industry that has something like that, where like your chances of walking home with the baby after a round of IVF is 30%. And it's like $20,000. Wow. Like what? And it uncovered by insurance. There are very few health plans that cover it. So that certainly was huge for me. I also, I live with asthma, and I have some immune system issues that I am constantly battling. And so really prioritizing my health. And currently I'm kind of like getting back into something I was really into when I started in healthcare, which is like the quantified self. Now, I think that there's like a pathological path within the quantified self that's like, to me, just too much. Like it focusing on the data so much to me can be stressful. And so, I'm not that paranoid. But for instance, I recently built out this whole spreadsheet of all the supplements I was taking. And then I was like, okay, I'm switching it up. There's some that I was going to go off of. And I wanted to really introduce, now that I'm 40, I was like, shit, I need more calcium. My vitamin D is always low. So kind of creating this spreadsheet and just really prioritizing what I'm putting in my body. I also work out a lot. I do a lot of Pilates. That's kind of my drug of choice. And I do some weightlifting that I started after I was in a car accident. I was rear-ended by a drunk driver 2.5 years ago. My car was totaled, and I did not break a bone because I had a Volvo. This is not an ad for Volvo, but also
Volvo
very happy.
Like a girl.
Yeah, right. But absolutely saved my life. And but I had whiplash, and I had to kind of work back to kind of my mobility through physical therapy, which kind of led to weightlifting. My PT is a CrossFitter. So
she inspired you to get
inspired me. So I've been working with her for 2.5 years, and weightlifting and just being strong has been something that's new to me. You can
legit hit like a girl.
I can hit like a girl. That's my goal. But yeah, now I'm just years away from menopause. And so there's like all this other stuff, health stuff looming. And I think it's ironic when we work in healthcare and don't take care of our own health. There are many of us like that, including my former self. And you can, slide for your 20s and some of your 30s, but then it really catches up with you. So I was hoping to get an Aura ring on sale for Black Friday, and they didn't have a good sale. So not sure what I'm going to do, but I want to get one. I want to start really tracking sleep better and whatnot. So that was a very long way to answer your question about
it is really interesting.
Stuff.
So do you find that women's health generally, and I hate that it's women's health, it should just be health, right? Like it shouldn't be women's health, women's tech, femtech, whatever, but it is. So do you find that your own experiences with health then inspire some of the investments that you do now? Or do you find it's more trends that are in the industry generally that could potentially, support?
I think both. And I think that this is some advice I give folks when they're talking about single stock picking and investing in the stock market and like a single stock. And I think like using your own experiences is a great way to identify trends. Like if you know a ton about, if you're like an interior designer and like what furniture brands are like trending and it's, the public stock, like then, I think that sort of information can help drive your strategy and be really an effective way to, be successful on the stock market. So I would say like as a patient, I'd like to use my own experiences to become a better investor, and a better founder. So yes, I definitely kind of combine my interest, and then it's like a vicious cycle. Like if something is wrong, like if I have like some ailment, I go down like the rabbit hole of knowing everything about it. Like IVF, I know everything about IVF. I know every company in the space. I would not have done that.
Expert on the topic you never wanted to be an expert.
I hate it. I'm so glad I'm on the other side of it now. But I would never have gone that deep into the topic if I didn't have that personal drive. If I didn't ask the questions. I'm just a curious person. Like, how does this work? And wait, there's so many nuances to it. So like understanding embryo grading. I know, now all the companies that are doing that in the space and just to make things more efficient. So yes, that was another long way to say yes. Like I think and I encourage everyone to use your own, when life gives you lemons, make some lemonade. Like if there's anything good out of it, I have invested in Kindbody, which is doing exceptionally well in the space. HITea, which is doing exceptionally well in the space. So I've, if nothing else, my experience has like led me to build a thesis that has helped me invest in some really tremendous companies.
So from, all your experience in the industry, what are the women that you look up to in the industry doing right? You're kind of we all have someone we look up to. We all look up to you and would love to learn who you look up to, and why. Why do you look up to them? What are they different about them? How are they positioning themselves for success in emerging areas that really inspire you?
Yeah, there's so many. When I think about those who have despite all odds, made it quite far in the startup world. And I hate to use the term unicorn because I think that there's certainly some issues around it. But to get to $1 billion valuation in a company, you have to, even if, the valuation was in 2021, you have to, building a company of that scale is a tremendous feat. And seeing women like Anne Wahecki at 23andMe, that's now publicly traded, or Toya Najayi from Cityblock, Julia Cheek from Everly Health, the last two companies are companies that I have invested in. So, a little biased, or Kate Ryder of Maven, or I mentioned earlier, Anne Lamont of Oak. I'm an LP in her fund. I think the strategies they deployed was to work hard and work smart. I think that these are already very smart, confident women, and they didn't let people get in their way. And they had good ideas. They built strong networks. They surrounded themselves with other smart people, and they've done it gracefully. I would say they don't. Like, I'm sure they're like a duck, paddling underwater and it's all crazy. But they have been like beacons of light in the space where it's so nice to have different faces that are not just men to look up to, because then, you're like, okay, I see myself in them and I know that there's room at the top. We just let's just figure out how to get there.
Oh, I just love that. To finish this conversation off right, where can our listeners find you online?
Yes. I am all over the internets. I would say my blog is probably the most helpful place. So just my name, halletecco.com. You can Google it. And I need to have like a better search function, but you can look up topics from women's health to, I think there's a couple blog posts on fertility, starting a company, angel investing, just tons of resources. And I'll continue to publish resources. I have one that's coming out. By the time this episode is out, a new blog post will be out about how to sell your company. I've interviewed 4 founders who all sold their companies for over $190 million and in the digital health space, and interviewed them, kind of synthesized some of the key learnings and sharing that on the blog. So that kind of stuff. I'm also on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram, and it's just all under my name. And I love connecting with folks. So follow me, tweet at me. Can you say tweet at me anymore? X at me?
Yeah, you can say tweet at me. No rules. And I know all of you guys are going to just love that content. So thank you so much, Halle, for your generosity of being willing to share it with us. We are all learning from you, and you inspire us in the work you do. Before I forget.
Yeah.
Tell us what tea you brought with.
Oh, yes.
You brought today. Yes.
So
Rock Health, it says.
This is my Rock Health vintage mug. This is our, when we started our tagline, which is on the other side, is build something useful. And that was really our mantra for kind of the tech community, and to encourage folks who were in tech that wanted to start companies to really think about how they were spending their time and maybe guilt them into joining us in healthcare. So this is an old vintage mug, at least 10 years old now. So, and I only drink green tea. So that is what I'm drinking today.
Oh, well, that's just too good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much.
And thanks to you folks, too. Check out the Hit Like a Girl podcast website and YouTube page for more interviews with esteemed guests like Halle today. Cheers. Like a Girl Media is more than a media network. It's a community. We want to meet you and amplify your voice and the voices of outstanding women innovating in healthcare. Interested in starting your own podcast or hosting an event near you? Connect with us online or in person. We're here to support and empower you.